So, good morning, boys and ghouls, and welcome to another amazing episode of the Subway Rap Podcast. Some of you may know me because of my grindcore band from Madrid, Spain, entitled Teething, and some of you may know me because of my stupid comics, my stupid illustrations, under the name Luisifer. But everybody knows me because of my beautiful brown dog, Bingo. If you don't know who Bingo is, he's the funny dude in the background of most of my videos. He's just chilling, keeping me company. Anyways, today's food for thought is my favorite album of the year. My favorite album of the year so far is Olivia Rodrigo Sour. I live in my own bubble, but apparently it's like the biggest shit ever. And I must say, I understand why. It's one hell of an album from track 1 all the way to the end. And 2 thumbs up for that awesome album art. I can't wait to pick this up on vinyl. Apparently it's coming out in August, which lets you know what a delay there is in vinyl pressing plants. Anyways, enough about Olivia Rodrigo. Let's talk about my very awesome guest, Dwid Hellion. I cannot believe this guy, this awesome fucking guy, is guesting on my podcast. And we had an amazing chat. Amazing chat. I found out all these cool things about his artwork, his work with integrity, which I was not aware of. So if you're a fan of Dwid and all of his work, please enjoy this episode. Thank you very much.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going okay. Sorry I was late.
Not a problem. Were you busy with work or something like that?
Well, I broke my arm a couple weeks ago.
Holy shit! What? Are you okay? What happened?
I was skateboarding, so I broke my arm, and my elbow's broken in a few places, and I have a new brace that they just put on it yesterday. So I was a bit out of it. I'm sorry I fell asleep.
Not a problem at all. That's a more than reasonable excuse. Are you on any like painkillers or anything like that?
No, I don't take so much of that, so
okay.
It makes it a little heavier for me.
Dude, that's cool. Because I'm guessing you've been a skater since you were really young.
Yeah, when I was 13 years old.
Okay, so that's cool. You still get on the skateboard once in a while. Because I know it was your 50th birthday recently.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've been skateboarding a long time, and this is the first time I ever broke anything. So, I broke a finger when I was 15.
Okay. Well, you're a real skater when you at least break one bone, and it's
I broke a few. I got a big metal rod through my arm and titanium rod, so I got some jewelry out of it.
Okay. Well, anyways, thank you so much for joining me, and
my pleasure.
And it's great to finally talk to you. It's been a really easy process. I hit you up, you were really nice, and you're like, "Fuck yeah, let's do this in a couple of days." So
yeah, sorry I was late though.
Not a problem, because I'm stuck at home all day, so it's not a problem. Maybe another day it would have been difficult, but today is good.
Oh, great.
So Dwid, we're gonna get started. I already started recording, but I just wanna welcome you to the Subway Rap Podcast. This is a new thing for me. I've been enjoying it a lot during COVID. I think we all have a lot of hobbies, but I feel like maybe we've pumped our hobbies up to 10 during these times. I don't know about you.
I pretty much just do the same as I always do, but it's been a little bit less inspiring to work, but
okay.
I try to muddle through it.
I see. Is that your drawing desk you have behind you?
Yeah, this is my office. I have like a lot of musical equipment up here, and that's a green screen for video stuff, and a drawing table. And then around me is a big mess of electronic equipment, little synthesizers, and
that's cool. I'm guessing you use these synths with How do you pronounce Vermapyre?
Vermapyre, no. This is stuff I would use for Psywarfare.
Okay, there you go.
Psywarfare is electronic stuff. Vermapyre is like homemade guitars that are electric.
Exactly. Okay, I got them confused.
I can show you one. I think I have some laying around here. Like these kind of guitars.
Wow.
So
And
when they're electric, they sound pretty cool.
Awesome. You built this on your own?
Yeah, I built them. I have a whole bunch of them for different types of sounds.
That's so cool. When did you stumble upon this new venture, which is like creating instruments? Is this a new thing for you?
No, I think I started that one maybe 15 years ago or so.
Okay, excellent. Well, Dwid, I always start off all of my podcasts with the same question. I hope it's. I love this question, and I think you're gonna like it too. We're gonna talk about food. Are you more of a sweet guy or a salty guy?
I guess it's difficult to say. I live in Belgium, and the people here, they love to have sweet food. I think I'm more like a spicy kind of thing, is maybe my favorite, but sometimes I guess I'll have sweet as well.
Awesome. And do you have like a dish of choice? Like that one thing that'll brighten your day up if you're having a really shitty day?
I don't know. Sometimes I make burritos here for my family because that's not a common thing in Belgium. And I make a unconventional burrito type thing. And, that is supposedly originally from Mexico, but all my Mexican friends say that it's a myth, that it's really just something that's the leftovers that they put in together and take to lunch for work the next day or something. That's what a burrito is. But where I lived in America when I was a boy, a burrito was considered an actual real thing. So but I guess hamburgers were like that at one point too, weren't they? They were
exactly
devised as a hunting snack. The guy could take on his hunting trips.
Well, I really like your answer because it involves family. I think you kind of like burritos because it's an excuse to gather around the table, and it's like a special.
Yeah, my family helps me make them as well, to some degree. Depends on the day and if they're willing.
Okay, so maybe it's a Sunday thing, maybe. Okay, dude. I want to ask you how this last year and a half has been for you, apart from breaking your arm. Like, how has COVID been treating Dwid lately?
Well, it's been a bit like my arm. It's been a bit annoying and awkward and uncomfortable. I thought at first that it would give me a lot more opportunity to do things, but then because my children, for the most part of the quarantine, were at home, then that meant that I had to keep an eye on them.
Right.
And so my ability to work decreased dramatically at that point. And then I sort of didn't have the same kind of fire and inspiration because I wasn't traveling, I wasn't doing things and being inspired by life and leaving and travel. So it's been slower than I would have expected. I imagined I'd get a lot more done than I did.
I can totally relate with what you're saying. And I feel like, I don't know about you, I'm guessing it's similar, but pretty much my social life is shows, and shows haven't been around, traveling hasn't been around. So that's been tough. But but I'm not a dad, but I can totally see how you had to step up your dad game. So props for that. At least you got to spend some quality time with your kids.
Thank you.
So yeah, talking the other day when we were talking on Instagram, I just recently learned you've been living in Belgium for the longest time. How did you stumble upon this, being an American?
I think I moved here in 2003. Yeah, I moved to Belgium. Well, I would I was on tour in Europe,
Hmm.
and a friend of mine named Hans from the band Liar. Have you ever heard of them? He had just
I
bought a house,
Okay.
and he invited me to stay. He bought a big house, and he was just living there alone. And he said after the tour, if I had nothing to do, if I wanted to, I could just stay there with him for a holiday. So I did, and then while I was on holiday, uh, then I met my wife, and then I came back.
Okay. And then you met your wife, you started a family, and you fell in love with Belgium?
Yeah, there's a lot of good things about Belgium.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome.
There's obviously differences, and there's positive and negative things compared to living in America.
And apart from touring, do you ever travel back home to see family or anything like that?
When touring happens, I travel often, maybe twice a month, sometimes even. So I get to see my family in the States sometimes during those travels.
Okay. Good, good.
Depends on the region.
Right, right. And from what you were telling me the other day too, I wasn't aware. Yeah, you've been doing home recording since the early '90s or the '90s, which
Yeah.
wasn't such a thing. Now it seems like it's more and more frequent. But I think even recording is part of your job. So and you told me also you've been recording most of all of your projects from your home studio.
Yeah, for the most part. There's been in the 90s, there were a couple occasions when I would record albums in the studio, but then I stopped towards the end of the 90s because it became too many people telling me their opinions on what should be done, and I didn't like that.
Okay. Okay. So
Too
much
many cooks in the kitchen to go with your food.
my
metaphor.
food theme. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Dwid, I want to talk a little bit about artwork because I'm fascinated by your artwork. Not only the artwork you do on your own, but just your taste for art, whether it's album covers for your bands or designs you do for other people. So what do you think if we go down like I'm gonna ask you about a couple of examples, and if you could just tell me the story behind some of them. I feel like one of the most iconic pieces you've been involved with is when you worked with Pushead on the Humanity as the Devil cover.
Yeah, Pushead did that artwork on the cover.
Right. And do you mind sharing the story how that came together?
Sure. I knew Pushead when I was a child, like 13 or 14. I would write fan letters to him in the early 80s. He had some people don't know, he had a band called Septic Death.
Yes.
And they were like maybe somewhere in between grind and punk hardcore kind of stuff, maybe metal too, and sometimes real fast. And he did all the artwork for his band and had a good following for his band and his artwork. He would also do artwork for other bands. And I was in the fan club for a long time, and we would correspond, and I would order his records and t-shirts and things. And then when it came time for the first few records of Integrity, I worked on those myself. And then at some point, the record label said they were real stingy. They wouldn't give us a penny to extra. You know, we'd have to do everything on like the smallest of budgets, impossible budgets. So we'd have to really plan everything out. That's also why I did the artwork too, I think. Okay. Part of it at least. But at some point when Humanity was coming to be, the record label offered to pay a little bit of money to get to allow Pushead to do the artwork, and he generously did it for a small fee, a smaller fee, because at that time he was working for Metallica and predominantly Metallica and some other big radio kind of groups.
Well,
Dr. Dre, Soundgarden,
Yeah.
and that type of thing, and some others I can't recall. But at that point, when he did that, he was doing some real big things, and I think maybe we were one of the last of the underground groups that he worked with at that time. He may still do things. I don't know, but to my knowledge, we were one of the last ones.
I guess that's the perks of being pen pals with Pushead at the age of 13, 14 back in the day.
Yeah.
So talking about Septic Death, Pushead, I wanted to pull out one of my favorite Integrity 7-inches, which is this one.
Yeah.
There's a really cool story behind this 7-inch because it's 2 Septic Death covers, correct?
I think so.
And I heard a story which I don't recall now, which is I think you recorded the vocals to this much later. Like the music was recorded at some point, and then the vocals were recorded much later. Is that true?
Sort of. What the story is, that's called Septic Death Karaoke. And I had a copy of recordings of Septic Death that were in the 80s, in the 90s, when you would go into the recording studio. Sometimes you would record your drums and your bass, and then maybe your guitar or just a scratch guitar. Then you get a cassette tape, go home for a couple of days and work it out, and then come back and finish it with like a proper guitar track and the vocals, and then mix it. So I had a copy of the Septic Death, those songs from Septic Death that were just the bass and the bass and the drums, and maybe a little guitar in there for following. And so we took that and we added our guitar and our vocals, and that's what that became. So it's like karaoke.
Okay, cool. I wasn't aware. Is that the actual name of the EP?
Yeah.
Septic Death Karaoke. Okay.
Yeah.
And what about the artwork? Is this you or is this Pushead?
That's my drawing based on a Pushead.
Right. Yeah, that's what it felt like that. Very cool. Very cool. I'm gonna pull out another 7-inch, which is a 2-song EP, I believe. I'm not sure what the name is, but I wanted to ask you about this artwork because I feel like it's really iconic, and I want to know how this came about.
That's called Valpurgis Knock, the 7-inch.
Okay.
And that's Charles Manson. It's kind of sitting on top of a kingdom or something. If you unfold it, it extends into like a longer play. Yeah, you see it like goes down. And there's a bunch of skeletons and dead corpses beneath him and his kingdom.
Very cool. Very cool. And I think there's a this has been in press for a while, and I believe there's different colors to it. You put this together, right? This seems like mixed media, like collage, and then you draw on top of it or something like that.
Yeah, I drew most of it, but I didn't put out the record though. But I put the artwork together.
Okay. I want to ask you about this next 7-inch, which is In Contrast of Sin, which I really like the artwork to this. I'm not even sure what it is, but it just really caught my eye the first time I saw it. And I really like this old Integrity logo. Can you tell me about?
That's my first 7-inch, and that's my first 7-inch, and that sticker is impeding the artwork on it. If you look, it's like a crucified witch.
Let's take a look.
That sticker probably says what color vinyl it is or something like that.
Yeah, it says limited colored vinyl. Okay.
Now you might see a face there and a crucifixion.
Yes, I can decipher the witch now.
His feet at the bottom.
Okay.
Things like that.
And this is 100% you, right? Collage?
Sort of. It's a collage. So
okay.
I collage pieces of comic books and stuff together.
And what
that was in the late 80s or early 90s.
Okay. Very cool. And what about the artwork for To Die For? I know Jacob Bannon worked on this, but I can imagine you guys exchanged ideas?
Well, it depends on the version that you're talking about. The one that's the red kind of fire with a skull, that's Jake.
Okay.
Then
Okay.
some of the vinyl versions were different covers, and I did those.
Okay.
But there was a lot of different presses with different artwork. That keeps changing the artwork. Just depends on which copy somebody would come across.
Very cool. One of my favorite Integrity records.
It's like 20 years old, so it's been printed a few times.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that old. Okay. It still sounds fresh.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course.
I think it came out in 2002, maybe.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. 20 years.
Been a long time. That 7-inch was like over 30 years or something. That's like 90, I think.
Right. I've heard the story behind the creation of the actual Integrity skull, but I haven't heard the story behind the actual lettering logo. What I'm guessing you drew that?
Which lettering? There's a few.
The
splatter lettering, or
the
one
splatter
that looks like
lettering. Yeah, that one.
Yeah. So in the 80s, we had a couple of companies, Letraset and Chart Pack, and they would sell to people these kinds of papers that were like fonts, alphabets, usually 2 or 3 A's, 2 or 3 B's, 2 or 3 C's, etc., on a sheet of paper. The paper would be a clear plastic, and the letters would be kind of in reverse. So you could take a pencil and you rub on the pencil, with the pencil you rub on the plastic, and that letter would kind of peel off, like not a sticker, but almost like a sticker that you'd use pressure, and you could put it on the paper and then recreate or create these fonts. Now you could do it with a computer, but back then you had to do it that way, a bit like collage. So you'd have to buy those sheets. I think they'd be $5 or $10 a sheet. And one of the letter sets was called LZH1, and that font looked in a way similar to, like, as you see the font, it looks like Septic Death's logo, or Sam Hain, which was a Misfits Danzig project. And it reminded me of those two and kind of horror movies and things. So I thought that would be a good one to use. So I based it off that. But because I didn't have a lot of money, instead of rubbing the letters up, I Xeroxed the page so I could keep messing with it and redrawing it and things. And over the years, it evolves. You see, over the years, it changes in some of its ways, because sometimes I would lose it and have to redraw it or whatever.
That's so cool that it was such a, it totally matches your style. It's such a hands-on project. I recall these, what do you call that?
We called it rub-off letters, but there may be
an
actual technical name for it. But when I was in school, we called it rub-off letters.
There you go. I remember my dad, just like maybe twice a year, or my mom would, like if they were feeling like especially nice that day, they would come back from work and they just picked one up on the way and gave it to me and my brother and my sister, so we could just have fun for a bit. And I remember, it was cool because if you were witty enough, you didn't only, I mean, the obvious thing is doing it on paper, but if you tried really hard, you could do it on like different surfaces, whether it's.
Yeah, it would stick to other surfaces. And also what was interesting, it was like it was a material that was almost rubber in a way.
Yeah.
Maybe it's similar to like the t-shirt Plastisol ink or something. But one thing that was interesting you could do too is there would be some letters that would be maybe more jagged, and you could sort of rub only a part of that off onto one of the other letters, and you could sort of make it more ornate.
Yeah, hence the result of the Integrity logo, right?
Yeah, so sometimes I'd mix them up and make different things and try to make it more fun.
That's so cool. I've actually tried hunting that rub-off in the past couple of years. It's not that easy. Like before, you would find it more easily.
Yeah, it's not easy to locate that font. No.
Yeah. Okay, I want to ask you about the cover for Howling, all right, your latest LP,
Yeah.
which I think is beautiful and looks, I'm so glad this is on a 12-inch because it's, you can just appreciate the back and the forth so much.
Thank
And it feels very biblical, like it was made a long time ago, but I'm not sure. I feel like maybe you were involved in this. What's the story behind this?
Yeah, I put the collages together for that record. And yeah, you're right. It was supposed to look biblical and older and have the sort of weight that something biblical would possess. And lately, that character that's on the front and the back, he's been involved in some of the other records and reprints and things. He's made appearances in those.
Does he have a name?
I don't really have a name for him, but the idea is if you look at his face, in that version, I don't know which version you have, but in different versions, like he eventually grows fangs. So it depends on the press you have.
Oh, really?
I don't know if he has fangs yet. So sometimes he eventually grows fangs. You may have one of the first presses. So eventually he grows fangs. If you notice there's a parasite in his forehead that is sort of telling him what to do. And eventually he tears that out of his head. And when he does, he turns into the skull that's shattered. That is the logo of the band. So it's a reverse origin story.
That's I can't believe, if I understood correctly, depending on the pressing, his fangs keep on growing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Is that a bit of trivia not a lot of people know?
Yeah, I don't think I've said that before.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna have to hunt out those future pressing.
Yeah.
Very cool. I love that kind of stuff. I love
There's a new printing that's coming out in a couple of months that also has different center spread artwork, centerfold artwork.
Okay, totally different, or is it like modified?
Totally different.
Okay.
On this record that you have, probably it has a live photo.
Correct. It has a live photo. Yeah.
The new one has artwork instead of the live photo.
I love, what's this effect called? This like glossy effect.
It's called spot UV. It's a gloss. And so what they do is they put an additional gloss. Like sometimes you'll have super glossy magazines that almost look like they're wet because they have so much of a gloss coating on it.
Right.
And that's the process. But instead of using it the normal way, I use it as art, as an art embellishment. And if you look at the cover, the skull is in there. You have to turn it in the light a special way. But when you're in the record shop, it's in a bag usually, so you don't notice that because the bag will distract from the shine.
Yeah.
So you take the record home and you open it up, and then you have a surprise. That type of thing has always been interesting to me. And when I was younger, I worked in the graphic department for a newspaper. I was in charge of the graphic department for a newspaper called the News Herald, and I would get solicited by different printing companies to try out different printing techniques. And that was one that came across my desk one day, and I saved the brochure until I got to a point where a record company would be willing to invest the money to do that, because it's a little more expensive. So luckily that came to be. And so now most of there's a series of records that have been reprinted, and new ones like the one you have there that all have that going on. Maybe that will change in the future and have a different style for the records. I'm not sure yet.
I love what you said about how when you're at the record store, you don't actually notice the effect because it's in the plastic sleeve. But when you get home and you pull it out, you're like, oh, there's an extra treat here. That's actually what got me into record collecting many years ago, because I just picked up a 7-inch, and I obviously didn't open it at the record store, but I brought it home, and then I just saw how the vinyl was shaped a weird way. It was green. In my head, I was like, oh, wow, I'm really getting my money's worth, you know? There's a labor of art and love behind this. That's cool. I can totally tell. This is why I wanted to focus on your art. I can totally tell that's where your mindset is.
I even did things with the vinyl cutting, mastering itself to make it surprising on some records, where there would be like hidden tracks at the end of the record, and some records would have like, it would play the whole record to the middle, and then it would seemingly stop, but you'd see there's more tracks there and say, what the hell's that? You'd pick up the needle, try to get it there, but I had the guy master it in reverse. So it would spiral the opposite direction. So if you just dropped it there, it would never get there. Just keep going to the dead stop part, you know. So you'd have to put it actually right next to the center label, and then it would play out, and then you could hear the song. The song wouldn't play in reverse, but the grooves would go in reverse. So it was some tricks like that I'd done in the past. Sometimes I did records where they have parallel grooves, where like you, depending on where you drop the needle, it would depend on what song you got.
That's so cool. And did you come up with this on your own, or you had already seen it, some other band or artist do this?
The one where it stops in a lock groove?
Yes.
And then start from the backwards. I don't know if I invented it, but I definitely asked the guy to do it, and he was angry and said it was a lot of work, but it could be done. Okay. He had never done it before. So that's possible. I know that people have made the records go all the way backwards before. Right. All the grooves cut all the way in the opposite direction before, but never had they integrated the two together. I've also done records where the lock groove, which is that thing that stops before it gets to the sticker, where I would embed a little loop of sound in there, so it would just play forever. I do that often, actually.
And how is that done? Because I actually I was going to share that story, because that happened to me. I don't know what hip hop record I picked up, but at the end, it was just the same beat over and over and over and over again. So how is that made? It feels like.
Well, I think the first one was the Beatles. They did that. Okay. And but how do you do it now versus then? Then you would do it. They would cut the record by actually cutting it. They have like a lathe cutter, and they would spin a blank record, a lacquer, and they would cut your music into the lacquer. And you could, in some situations, which I was present at a few of them, you could oversee it and say, okay, I want you to hit the lock now. And then you get lucky. Sometimes it wouldn't work as right as you'd like. Sometimes it would. Now with, they have like a direct to plate kind of method that they do at the bigger plant at the big plant in Czech. So when you want one done nowadays, you just tell them that this section's what you want to try to go for, and they can digitally give you a representation of that in advance. And then if you say, okay, I think that works, then they go ahead and cut it for you.
Wow.
But it's all based off of, math, in the sense that when it gets to that part of the record, the whole, the circle that it's spinning is smaller than the outside of the record. So you have to your sample length can only be based off of the length of the turn of the record, because it can only be one rotation.
That's so cool. This just spirals back to what we were saying, how no one realizes this until they actually purchase the record and play the record. And this, it's just like
maybe, unless their friend told them or something.
Unless or they're hearing this right now.
Yeah, exactly. Not all my records have it, but some do. Many have weird things to them. Depends. My newest thing I've been doing is printing on the inside of the jackets for regular jackets, not gatefolds, so that if it's a one LP, like that one you have is 2 LPs, but there's actually even a version that's 3 LPs with a bonus album of extra songs. But there's a technique that you can do where you print on the inside so that you have the record jacket, but when you take the record out, you notice that it's black on the inside, or maybe a pattern. And if you kind of squeeze it like this and look inside, you can see secret artwork in there.
I've seen this once or twice. It might have actually been an Integrity record. What record is this on?
I've done it on some Integrity records, and I have a record label called Holy Terror Records, and I've done it for Controlled Death. I did it for their first for the 3 records that I did for Controlled Death. Controlled Death is a Japanese I don't know, how to describe it, kind of electronic horror, black metal kind of thing.
Right up your alley, right up Holy Terror's alley. And
It is.
And how because I was wondering, I felt like when I saw that, I was thinking the only way of doing this is printing it before it's actually folded and glued together. Is that
I believe that's how they do it.
Okay.
I mean, what in the sense of that, just like with the clear coat that you asked about earlier, normally people use it and they call it a flood, where the whole thing will just be black, just to make it cooler or maybe more, metal looking or whatever. Then the whole thing would be black, and when you pull the record out, it's all black. Sometimes you get a black dust sleeve, so it really looks nice, which is what I do usually as well. But I said, can't you just print it? I mean, you don't have to flood it, right? And they said, yeah, I guess we could. So they did it for me.
Cool. Any other like that's a cool. So you've been doing that somewhat lately. Anything you've been like
that's more lately, yeah. Past couple of years I've been doing that one.
Okay.
Just try different tricks. I get bored.
That's fun. Yeah, that's the way to keep us entertained. Last artwork I'm gonna ask you about is the different cover art for Systems Overload, which I think I enjoy this one more. And what's the story behind this artwork? Did you put this together?
Yeah, I made that artwork, and actually the funny thing is I can show you a piece that's similar to it right now if you want to.
Please do, please.
I can sort of show you the construction of it. This is a smaller version. My friend Clint, who put out the record that you have in your hand, he is an old friend of mine, and he owns Organized Crime Records. And this is the background. So what this is just like,
textures.
Well, it's plaster painted on there. I don't know how well you can see it. And then I color it so it looks like petrified wood or something. And then what I do is I get old paper like this, and then I write on it a message, and then I plaster it onto this so it looks like kind of like an old message that was like an old poster or something that was on a old piece of wood or an old building that had eroded over the years. And that's how the whole thing came to be. And the reason I have this one is because my friend who actually owns that painting and the first version, he had a baby, and here's a picture of his son.
Oh, wow.
If you notice, there's a ultrasound photo in both of those, and the ultrasound in the first one, and that's the second version. Okay. Those are that's my youngest son's ultrasound, and then the first version is my oldest son's ultrasound. And both records ended up being reprinted at a time where I was having sons born, just coincidentally. So I used the ultrasound photo from those boys in the artwork. And since my friend just had a child, I got his ultrasound, and I'm putting that together for him as a gift for his the birth of his child.
That's such a.
But my arm broke, so I'm a little bit behind on it.
Okay, that's such a lovely, heartfelt story. I'm so glad I asked you about this artwork. I would have.
He's a great friend of mine.
Yeah, and I can imagine. Hopefully he doesn't hear this, and he will receive the gift before he sees this.
I already told him a bit about it because.
Okay.
Because I'm running late, because you see my arm. So
right. Do you mind, Dwid, if I share you since I'm getting all pumped up? I'm seeing you're sharing your artwork. Can I show you my recent collage?
Sure, of course. I'd love to see it.
Okay, so my band Teething just hit the studio a couple of months ago to record, as we usually do, an album and several splits. So you just record a lot of stuff together. I'm guessing you guys do that too?
No, but
okay.
We go as we go. It depends on the project.
Yeah, it's kind of a budget thing for us. We're like, okay, we have studio time. Let's track 25 songs, So here's The record is gonna be called Help. There's the title. And it's like we have our own like personal Eddie from Iron Maiden. His name's Ralph. And but on the previous album, he has like a crust punk look. But I decided to give him like a phantasmagoric, ghoulish look.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, and so that's the cover.
Yeah, that looks cool.
This will
flows over to the back.
This will be the back cover. So yeah, when you turn it around,
is it a normal sleeve or is it a gatefold?
I want to do gatefold if the record label is willing to throw in that extra cash, because I'm feeling like it would be really cool. But one of those gatefolds, instead of opening up like a book, opens up like this, you know?
Yeah, of course.
So but what I usually do is later I'll throw it into the computer and I'll the whole cover is gonna be pink. Like this is everything that's black and white will be pink, but like not a bright pink, but a like breast cancer kind of pink. Like I want it to look like a bit sick. So I just wanted to share that with you because I got
that looks great, man.
And okay, I think we're done talking about the artwork so far. I want to talking about covers. Integrity recently did a really cool musical cover of Nothing. I think you guys did the whole Splitsville thing, which I thought was a really cool idea. And can you tell us about that? Like how that came about?
Well, Splitsville was done by 2 Minutes to Late Night, which is a program on social media, different types of platforms, that started out as kind of a talk show, like how you see late night talk show type thing, but for heavy metal and underground music. And it has a host named Gorsinio, who's kind of a comedian. And well, he is a comedian. And so his show is basically has a humor to it, and he involves interviewing musicians and also performing music on his program. But when the COVID quarantine took place, he had to rethink his strategy. So he started doing cover songs with different people and putting them together, and that was a popular thing he was doing. And then from there, he also did some live streams. But with his live streams, because they had the cover themes, he wanted to sort of carry that on. I think this is just my speculation about it, you know, how he came to be. I don't know if this is factual, but it carried over into, hey, why don't you guys cover each other, and then we'll do a live stream of that. That would be pretty fun. So we were friends with Nothing, and we thought that would be a good choice because it was an unlikely choice.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it works perfectly.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and
I think it turned out really nice. And there's a 7-inch that's on its way out eventually, but things are slow because of the times.
Yeah, the plants are very overbooked.
Plants are running slow because everybody tried to put out records last year.
Right. And I can see this is where you've been recording most of your videos, right? Here you have your green screen there.
Yeah. Well, most times I'm also on some of those 2 Minutes to Late Night things, those covers. So I'll use this green screen for that usually, or film outside. I've done like a Sam Hain cover for them and a Prince cover with some other folks. And there was another one, like Anthrax.
Okay, there you go. Talking about covers, I wanted to ask you about one of my favorite covers, not that Integrity did, but that a band did of Integrity, which is Dying Fetus.
Oh yeah.
Do you know how that came about? Did they tell you about it? I'm guessing you guys are friends.
No, I don't know them. I only knew about it later, and I'm not sure if it's even credited to us.
Okay.
So, but it's out on Relapse, so I think maybe in future versions it'll credit us.
Okay, cool.
So I've had people say, I found out about it because people said, hey, you're doing a Dying Fetus cover. I said, what do you mean? That song you're playing? I said, man, I wrote that song when I was 16 years old. What are you talking about? And
Okay. So yeah.
But I'm flattered that they did it, and it's really, really cool and nice of them to have done it. But I don't believe I've met the guys, and it was a surprise.
A very cool surprise. Yeah. Any other like flattering covers you've heard over the years? One comes to mind, which is I've seen, I don't think they actually recorded it, but I've seen live covers of Converge playing what song is it? Vocal Test?
Oh yeah, I've seen that too. Yeah, that's also flattering.
Okay.
Those are easy lyrics to remember for Vocal Test.
Which is no lyrics, right?
Yeah, it's a primal scream. So it's just getting out your aggression without having to use words.
Exactly. Okay. Okay, enough with the covers. I get the impression, correct me if I'm wrong, that you're quite a collector of many things. Am I wrong?
Sometimes it depends.
Okay.
I've been trying to limit it down though, but I get a bit of mania with things and buy too much of it.
Okay. And for example, integrity stuff, do you have like a place where you keep everything? Are you able to collect everything integrity related, or it gets too much?
Not at all. In fact, I have a bad quality where people come to visit me, and then if they like the band, oh, I've always looked for that record, and then I give it to them.
Right.
So I don't have much integrity things at all, actually.
Okay.
But I'm still doing, it's like sometimes people have asked me, companies have asked me to make like a book about my life. And I said, hey, I'm not dead, so why would I make a book about my life, And I kind of see it the same way with the records. Like, I don't need to keep my records because I make my records. And then they're going to be reprinted probably when they sell out. So I'll get that press or the next one. I'll catch it one of these times.
That makes sense. I'm
not really too precious about my own stuff. In the past, I would even actually destroy it. And that Systems Overload, the first one, I actually had it sitting by the curb at the garbage, and a friend came by and said, "Hey, don't throw that away. I want that." And that's why it didn't get taken out by the garbage truck.
So you just okay. That seems aligned with your personality sometimes. And
I didn't want to hang it on my wall or something. It just seemed like, like I don't wear my own shirts. I like the designs. I actually make the shirt designs because it's something that I think looks great. But then I'm cursed because I can't wear it,
Right. Do your kids rock your stuff?
Sometimes they do.
Okay, that's cool.
I have 5 kids, so some kids do, some kids don't.
Okay. And is there,
depending on their fashion sense.
Okay, comes and goes. What about, is there any are you a record collector of any band? Like, is there that one band that you collect all of their records?
I used to collect a lot of Japanese groups.
Okay.
And I had a huge collection of Gizem, which is a Japanese group.
Yeah.
And that would be probably the one that is the most that I had ever collected, I suppose. Okay. Because it was also the most difficult. They're very obscure with their stuff. They're very limited with their stuff. So it wasn't so easy to catch. And it also would only be available in Japan. So I'd have to either have a friend in Japan or be physically in Japan to get a hold of this stuff. So that made it a little more difficult to catch it.
Yeah, I think like when something is even more difficult to obtain, or like forbidden fruit, it just makes you want it that much more. Like when you were a kid and they wouldn't let you watch a movie, you just want
I guess it has that to do with it, but mostly it's one of my favorite bands, so there was that too. And I love the artwork and I love the music. So
for sure great band. Which I was surprised.
Probably, yeah, you're right, the chase is sometimes more fun than the catch.
Exactly. It's how, yeah, I was actually surprised Relapse put together that comp of Jism recently. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, I put that together. I arranged that.
You put that together. Okay.
It's awesome. Not a compilation, it's their first album.
Oh, okay. My bad. Okay. So that was your idea?
Well, it wasn't necessarily my idea. A lot of labels wanted to do that record for a long time, and I just happened to be able to put the people together, and they could work it out. But
Well, great job.
But the guy who runs the label, Relapse Records, Rennie, he's also a big fan of Giesem, and we were talking, and he said, "Man, that would be so amazing if." One of us said, "Man, that'd be so amazing if you put it out." And I said, "Well, I know them sort of, so I could maybe try to talk to them about it." And then it took about 5 years to come out.
Dude, well,
they also did Zao, which is another great Japanese band, and I'm friends with Cherry, who's a singer, and I'm glad that came out too. A lot of people never got to hear these two great bands because the records were so expensive. Right. And if they did get to hear it, they'd hear a really bad quality from either a bootleg or from some bad dub that would be on YouTube or whatever. So now they can have a pristine quality copy of it if they want to.
That's so cool. You were involved behind that, just like it's kind of what you're doing with Holy Terror, but you pass the torch to Relapse in this occasion.
Yeah, it wouldn't be something that I would want to handle because I thought it had both of the groups needed a bigger scope than what I do. My label is very small, and it's just like just things that I like. I do really small runs of under 500 probably, right. And it's just like that. It's just extra crazy stuff.
Cool. Dwid, let's talk about, since we're talking about this, which is really recent. I want to talk about some of the stuff you've been doing lately, musically speaking. The other day you sent me a link to your collaboration with Petbrick, which is Iggor Cavalera, and I believe your friendship goes back.
Yeah,
I've back been a while ago.
Igor for a long time.
That's cool. And
we also used to be neighbors for a while.
Oh, okay. Where was this?
In Belgium. He lived in Belgium for a while.
Very cool. So is that it? Just it came about because of the friendship. Igor was like, "Hey, you would be perfect for this song."
Well, we're friends and we respect each other's work, and he's done things for me. I've done things for him, and we're just good friends. And he said, "Hey, I have something I'm working on. Would you try to do a vocal for it?" So I did, and that's how that song came to be. And since then, they did a version of that album, called a remix version of that album, where they had different producers reinterpret the songs, and that song got reinterpreted 2 or 3 times on the remix album with different results.
Yeah,
it's a creative, innovative group that he has with Petbrick.
That's very cool. Yeah, I feel like this was, I don't know, it was a mesh. It was just something I had never heard before with your vocals and that kind of music. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, thanks.
What about I like Psywarfare. Is that how you pronounce it? Psywarfare?
Yeah, like psychological warfare, but okay. Psywarfare for short.
Okay. And I was surprised. I wasn't aware of this band, and I actually saw you've done quite a bit of shows and some touring with this band. Is there anything in the works for the future?
Yeah, I'm still working on an album for Relapse, but what happened was I started the album, and then when the quarantine started, people who had clubs and different things that were having difficulty would go around asking people for songs to help them generate a little bit of money to keep their electric bills paid and their rent paid. And I kept getting hit by different friends to give a song, and I ended up whittling down my album to nothing. So I'm still now I'm building it back up again.
Okay. Cool.
Or split records or different things. It's always something comes up, and then I usually I often say, okay, so I need to buckle down and just really do it.
Focus on an album.
But in that sense, it's given me more of a better scope of what I'm trying to do with the album, so I can make the album more aligned with the idea of what the album should be. So it won't be, so it will make sense together.
Very cool. Yeah. So it'll be one big piece instead of maybe sounding a bit like a.
It'll be several different songs, but it'll have a theme that kind of complements itself.
Cool. And what about sorry, I'm pronouncing this wrong again. Vermapyre. What's on the Vermapyre? What's on the horizon with Vermapyre?
I stopped doing it I don't know, several years ago.
Okay. So that's
I didn't have time for it anymore.
Right.
Maybe one day I'll do it again. I don't know.
Okay,
just a thing, like, it's just an idea that I had. I thought that would be a good idea to do. It's something I wanted to hear. So I did it for a while, and I recorded over 3 hours worth of music in total. And then I just sort of thought, well, actually what happened was someone said, hey, can I put out a collection of all your songs that you did? Mm-hmm. And then I realized it was about 3 hours worth.
Wow.
And I think it was a cassette. And yeah, it was a cassette. So then I said, maybe I should just stop it.
Okay. Well,
it seemed like a bookend,
Right. So let's say maybe it's on hibernation. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay. And before we were talking about just like very cool moments, and I feel like a very cool moment you were able to live was a couple of years ago, where you shared the stage with the Misfits, the original Misfits, and I saw a really cool video of you doing sound check.
Yeah.
With them. How did that come about?
I played at Psycho Las Vegas. It's a festival, an American festival. It's really cool. And they were also playing, and my booking agent knows that I'm a big fan. So he came to my, he and I had plans to have breakfast together. And he said, oh, we're going to have breakfast here at the backstage for the stadium part of it. The festival takes place in Mandalay Bay Casino, which is a big casino with lots of different venues inside of it. One of which is like a kind of a big auditorium, like where somebody really popular would play.
Right.
And he knew, his name is Max Vick, and he knew that the Misfits were rehearsing. So he was playing a bit of a trick on me. So he said, yeah, let's get some coffee and maybe, something to eat. And then while we were talking and eating, I said, is that the Misfits playing? What is that? I said, yeah, that's the Misfits rehearsing. Let's go watch. So we walk out into this big stadium, like kind of like you'd see like Bruce Springsteen or something, right, playing, with like the big nosebleed seats, the whole thing,
Yeah.
And it was just us. And then the band was on stage, and a couple of their road crew were sitting off to the side, just sort of like listening and seeing how the sound was going so that they could make notes, oh, maybe fix this or whatever. So I was watching, and it felt like it's a schoolboy. And so at some point, they must have arranged this, I think. I don't know. But at some point, Jerry said, hey, does anybody out there want to sing Hybrid Moments with me? Because Glenn isn't going to do this one. And I mean, it was me or Max. And so Max pointed it at me, and then I said, yeah, I'll fucking do it, and then I went up and did it. But I think it was a bit staged, for fun, because of my friend. But I don't know. It could have been a coincidence. Anything's possible. Who knows?
Well,
but it was a great thing to happen, and it was a lot of fun.
Shout out to Max for being one of the coolest friends ever.
Absolutely.
And I'm guessing Misfits is one of your favorite bands ever.
Well, I'm a big fan of the Danzig catalog, from his solo stuff to Sam Hain to Misfits.
Okay. So what an experience to have. I don't think a lot of people have had that experience, if any. So fist bump.
Yeah, most of my friends were very blown away by it. Even some of them who were in really popular bands, they were even like, holy shit. So it was pretty cool. Even my kids knew that it was important, and they were like, wow.
Yeah, that it just seems surreal, right? It feels like you're telling me the
did,
story,
yeah.
but you still. Well, I'm guessing it was Max that was filming with his like phone.
Yeah, that was my phone. I gave him my phone. I said, "Man, you got to film this."
Okay, good. So, how are you doing with time? Can I ask you a couple more questions?
Sure.
Okay, great. I wanted to ask you because I've read around the story behind Integrity 2000, but I'm not sure if the version I have is the correct version. I want to know what the story behind Integrity 2000 is.
The story. Well, the record took place in 1999, so 2000 makes sense for the title at the time. But the mix of the record didn't turn out the way that I wanted to. And I mentioned earlier that the label that I used to work with was very frugal with the payment, frugal with budget. So they wouldn't allow us to remix it or to make it better. We just had to go with what it was. And I have always disliked the mix of that record. I don't know. Is that the story you're looking for? What story?
Sorry.
Why
no,
are other people like Derek from Sepultura saying on it? Or
yeah, what's because yeah, no, I really liked your answer. Interesting trivia I was not aware of. But what I wanted to know is because the band, it's not the album isn't named Integrity 2000. It's actually like you switched your name to Integrity 2000. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right. Originally it was supposed to be that way, but the label didn't do it that way.
Okay.
The label had its own ways of doing things, and against
okay,
my vision.
And
so it depends on who looked at it. If it was the way that it was marketed, it wasn't marketed that way.
Okay. Well,
but I had a couple friends guest on it, like Jason, who was in the band In Cold Blood, which was also on that same label. And then my friend Derek Green, who is in Sepultura, he and I grew up together. Before we had bands, we were friends, and we were actually on the same skateboard team.
This is a perfect segue because I wanted to ask you about your link with Derek Green, which you already answered. You guys would skate together, childhood buddies. But from what I recall, I read somewhere that when you came up with the idea for Integrity, you wanted Derek to be involved. Is that correct? Was he involved?
Yeah, sort of. What happened was we were childhood friends, and we had a skateboard team, but it was a amateur team, but we would make stickers and shirts. I would make all the artwork for it. We would just, every time we get together, I'd bring shirts or stickers or something, and we would have these things, and it would feel like we were really doing something.
Very cool.
And from that, we realized that maybe it was possible for us to also make music, because at that time when we were young, we thought that was an impossible thing, that only very lucky, privileged people would be allowed to do that. And we came to realize that maybe we had a chance to do it as well. So we all started branching off into different directions with instruments. Some people became a drummer, some people became a bass player, some became a singer, and so on. And some became a guitar player, whatever. And I had a band. My first band was called Die Hard. And I ended up getting kicked out of the band because I didn't fit what the other guys wanted from the band. They wanted to sound like something that had already existed.
Okay.
But I didn't really want to sound like that. So I got kicked out, and then I accidentally got a record deal for Integrity, because Integrity had shirts and things. Like I said, with the skateboard, I would make the shirts and the artwork. So I was making, like, I guess Integrity was a streetwear company in a way, but more like I just would make the shirts, because I always had made shirts since I was like 10 years old. I had an airbrush at 10, and I would make my own shirts, and then eventually got into screen printing a little bit later, and so on. So I would give away these shirts that would say Integrity to my friends. And some of my friends were in bands that traveled, like Gorilla Biscuits. You might know who they are.
Yeah.
And one of their tours, right after they had done their 7-inch in 88 or 89, they came through the town that I lived in, and I gave them some shirts, and they went to from the town I lived in. Then they went to Chicago, which is where the record company that I ended up getting a record deal with was from. And that record company was just starting out, and they came to Walter, who was one of the guys in Gorilla Biscuits and a friend of mine, and said, "Hey, we would like to put out your album for Gorilla Biscuits." And Walter is a real friendly guy and said, "Well, I'm sorry, I already have an arrangement with Revelation Records to do that, but I appreciate your offer. However, my friend has this band Integrity. Maybe you'd like to check them out, because I know they're looking for a record deal." And at the time I had no songs, maybe some lyrics written down and some ideas that I had, for lack of a better word, beatboxed into a tape player. So I'd get the ideas, with my mouth, I would create the sounds so I'd know where I was going with it. And I could do some multi-track stuff like that with this device. But I had nothing real and hadn't played any shows with that project. So I think it was, So anyways, he said, "Yeah, I'll reach out to Integrity." So I got a phone call and asking to do a record. And I said, "Well, I don't have a demo to send you." And he sent a couple bucks for me to record a demo. And then that's how it came to be. But your question was about Derek. I got all over the place, didn't I?
No,
so
but
what happened was,
that was good.
When I got kicked out of Die Hard, I had to find new band. And this all happened around the same window of time. So I was trying to get that idea where I was beatboxing into the cassette player. I was trying to get, there's a song called Live It Down, which is on that 7-inch that you have. So I sort of beatboxed that and had the idea. And I talked to my friends who were my skate buddies, who had most of them were in this band called Outface, which was sort of like a dag nasty, melodic, romantic band, trying to get mostly girls to go to the shows rather than aggressive. Right. And Derek was the singer of that band and a good friend of mine. And Frank Kavanaugh, he was the bass player. And my friend Bill Gill was the earlier singer of this band Outface. So I got all those guys together and I said, "Hey, let's try to do this." And we had one practice maybe or something. And it just was awful. And when around that same window of time, I don't remember exactly, it's been over 30 years. Around that same window of time, Walter went to Chicago with the shirt. I got a record deal offered to me. And then one of the guys who was in Die Hard heard about the record deal offer. And then he said, "Hey, I'd like to join up on that." And he played on the 7-inch with me. So it's a confusing story.
I understood it perfectly. Don't worry.
Did you? Okay, good. I felt like I was rambling all over the place, man.
Not at all.
Having a broken arm is not making it easy to tell stories.
That's such a unique way of starting a band. I haven't heard a lot of stories like this. So
yeah, I don't think that's a very orthodox way to form a band. But in my defense, I did have the Die Hard thing going a little bit, but it sounded nothing like Integrity did. I wanted it to be more apocalyptic and biblical and such. And the first stuff didn't really catch that. But later on, the first album, I think it started to get there. And I still keep chasing where it should go. And eventually, maybe I'll I'll record the record that's in my head perfectly.
I'm sure you will.
And I'm always real close, but a little bit short. And that keeps me going, at least, keeps me chasing it.
Exactly. That's like we were saying before, half of the satisfaction is the chase.
Yeah.
And Die Hard, was that named after the movie or was that a coincidence?
No, it wasn't named after the movie.
Okay.
It was kind of a cliche type group, just like typical hardcore.
Okay.
Hard as in hardcore, I guess, and die
right.
If you're gonna really give it to hardcore, I don't know. It wasn't very well thought out.
Right.
It didn't have any imagery that was interesting or anything, at least not when I was involved. But they eventually did an LP with somebody else singing.
Okay. So okay. You went different paths. I wanted to ask you, sorry, before we were talking about Integrity 2000, and you mentioned in Cold Blood, your good friend and band partner, Dom. I think he just put out some In Cold Blood records, correct?
He put out some 15 years ago or so.
Oh, I'm getting confused with Cold as Life. Might that be?
Cold as Life. Yeah, that's a different group.
Okay, my bad.
That's a different group. They're from Detroit.
Okay.
Dom has just put out some of their old discography for them.
Yes.
But that's a different band entirely.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like Dom was like heaven sent for you and Integrity. Just meeting him and him being in the band it just gave Integrity has always had like a strong push, but I feel like since Dom has been in the band, it's been like a breath of fresh air.
But Dom is an old friend of mine. We met in the 90s. And originally I met him as a guy who would pester me, and he liked my band and would like send me AOL messages and things, like when the internet was very new. And I was annoyed by him at first because he was a kid, he's younger than me.
Right.
And then over time I became friends with him, and he had me sing on some of his band's records.
Mm-hmm.
And then we became closer when he started A389 Records.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the art director for that label for many years. And at some point he always enjoyed Integrity's music, and he looked at it as like he knew all the mythos and how things worked and everything. So when it came time for him to do an album with me, he sort of had it in his mind what the perfect album would be from his point of view as a fan.
Yeah.
And that would be the Howling record.
Great record. One of my favorite Integrity records. That's
oh, thanks.
Yeah, man, for sure. And talking about,
they got the biggest push of all of them too, because it was on Relapse. The old label that we were on just sort of like didn't promote us or anything.
Right.
So it was a funny thing to have a record come out when I was much older than most people who put out records, and get such a push at that time. That's
great. It got such a push, well-deserved push, and such a great deluxe edition. You said there's the 3 LP version out there. There's the
the first version had a third album.
Yeah.
And I don't remember how many they made of that small amount. And then now it's 2.
Very cool. Very cool. So speaking of Integrity, what's on the horizon for Integrity for the next year?
I'm working on a new album, but also I got all my old albums back. I got the rights back from all my very first albums. So Relapse is going to be putting out those with new production from Arthur Risk. He's a friend of mine who does really good work with mixing and vision.
Very cool. Is this what records is Relapse going to be releasing for the first time?
They're going to reissue or these are different versions,
okay,
because we went through the old masters and found like different parts of it that weren't on the albums, different things, different aspects, solos or whatever, vocals. And they're going to start with those for tomorrow: Systems Overload, Humanity's the Devil, Seasons in the Size of Days, 2000, and Closure.
Oh, wow. This is going to be great. Are these going to be individual releases, or will we be able to pick this up as a box set or something?
I think that they come out individually.
Okay.
But they might do something where they're all as a collection.
That would be awesome.
I haven't thought about that, but maybe.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, a lot of your records always have very cool liner notes. So I'm guessing these will be accompanied by something similar.
Yeah, I hope that people will enjoy it. So
definitely. Okay, so before we leave, I want to ask you the same last question I ask everyone. I think you're gonna like it. It's one of my favorite questions, which is, have you seen? I'm looking for movie recommendations, specifically horror. It can be new or old, something you've seen during the pandemic that really caught your eye and blew you away.
That's a difficult question. I don't know if I've seen anything recently that really surprised me. But for old horror movies that are interesting and maybe uncommon, I would say like there's a Czech movie called Morgiana. That's about two sisters that are feuding over feuding over a will where their father had passed, and there was, or maybe it's three sisters, and they were one of them would inherit more than the other, and then they have a rivalry. But the way that the colors are made and the way that it's shot, it's very special. And I think that's maybe 79, maybe. I don't know. I could look it up. Let's see. I can't remember the year. That's an interesting movie to see. Excellent. If you like them old.
Oh, yeah.
72. And, I've always been a fan of Begotten, which I think has become a bit of popular on the internet, but it's not so obscure anymore. And I love all the old German expressionist horror films, Nosferatu and Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and those kinds of movies, and Medusa series, which is also very interesting for me. I don't know. I don't really find too much new horror stuff to resonate with me.
Right.
But
but you definitely shouted out a couple of great ones, and you're right. Begotten has gotten some sort of cult status in the last couple of years, which I think is great.
Yeah. He's working on a new version. There's 3 movies to the series, and the new one's finished, but it's not available to see yet. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, I think we're good. We can cut here. Dwid, anything else you want to add before we leave?
No, it was great talking to you. I'm sorry I was late.
Not at all. I kind of feel bad because I know you must be in some sort of pain. I know when you wake up feeling sickish, it can be a struggle to have a hour-and-a-half conversation. So I do appreciate that.
I hope my responses were cohesive. I'm not sure if I'm sounding like a crazy old man who should be on medication or what. Hopefully it worked out for you. I have another interview in a half an hour anyway. So.
Oh, okay. Well, dude, I love
day of interviews.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. There's interest. I'm so happy we covered a lot of this artwork because these are stories I don't think myself or a lot of people know.
Yeah, I haven't been asked a lot of those questions before. So
would you be down with in a far future to do a part 2? We'll pull out some other records and we'll talk about the artwork to those records. Would you be down with that?
Absolutely.
Amazing. Great.
And that was Integrity with Systems Overload. The album we were talking about, where he talks about his sons and the sonograms, because there's two different album arts, the original and the remaster. This one I played is the original mix. Anyways, both great artworks. And how psyched are we all about picking up those Relapse reissues? And I'm gonna have to pick up that Gizm. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, like, rate, subscribe, share it with everyone, with your dog especially, because we all love dogs around here. That's all. Thank you so much for joining me. I was so happy I was able to interview and talk to Dwid. What a cool guy. I wish him a speedy recovery. And I'm gonna have to check out those films he told me about. So I hope you do too. Good night. Hasta luego.